Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Capitol Rundown. This is Representative Rutigliano. I'm honored today to have Senator Sampson with me. Hey, Rob, if you could just tell everybody who you represent, what towns you represent.
Sure. I represent the 16th Senate District, which is 5 towns. Waterbury, obviously the biggest city, but I also have small towns of Cheshire, Prospect, and Wolcott, where I live, and of course the entire town of Southington.
Southington. So we just came from a press conference that we had downstairs, and the premise of was really the culture of corruption, which is something that we've been harping on for quite some time up here in the Capitol. I was just hoping that you could just go through some of the topics that we talked about in today's press conference.
Sure. I mean, today's press conference was really about earmarks and about how the majority is using their, extreme majorities in both chambers and the governor's office to be able to, exchange money for political favoritism. That they can just, slide a name and a dollar amount into a bill or a budget document and have it pass without any, real oversight, no hearings, no understanding who these organizations are.
So it's a lot of it has to do with process. Because I know that some of this has to do, they've been doing it for years, but we had a special, an emergency certified bill that we did in the spring that had a whole bunch of money for a whole lot of groups that nobody knew who they were. So what I gather from today's press conferences, there's literally no formal process. They don't even have to fill out a piece of paperwork or go before a committee and say who they are. They just sort of get money. Am I reading that right? Is that true?
You're reading that exactly correct. I mean, there are other types of grants where you have to fill out an application or if you want bonding money, that sort of thing. But these earmarks are just the majority, wherever, individual lawmakers going to the leadership in the House and Senate Democrats and saying, hey, I need help in my district. Can you get some money for this thing? And they put it in the budget. And then, we get on the floor and either you or I are asking them, what is this organization? Yeah. And they're like, I don't know. It's unbelievable that this kind of thing can happen. And they're doing it, to help lawmakers that are in, tough districts. The Speaker of the House acknowledged that in a newspaper article that just came out like a month ago. He said, well, we give it to people that are in tough districts or if I like the lawmaker. What kind of crap is that? Is that how we decide what districts get money because the Speaker likes that lawmaker?
Is there any checks and balances on, say, a legislator either A, works for the nonprofit or maybe has a family member that works for the nonprofit? Because that's what I find sometimes unseemly is that we didn't realize that somebody's wife, sister's cousin's brother is running some whatever nonprofit and they receive some money.
Right. Well, that's another big issue. I mean, for me, it's two things. Early in the session, they had kind of a bunch of earmarks dedicated to politics. They wanted to, push back on the president. So they did a bunch of stuff about illegal immigration, stuff about trans rights.
Right.
So they gave all this money to those organizations. But then in the budget, it was more about helping individual Democratic lawmakers with grants that go to their districts. And in some cases, you're right, there were connections, people that are related somehow to the people receiving the grants. All of that should be public before it ever happens, in my view.
So just for clarification, so we tell everybody, there's earmarks and then there's bonding. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Well, I mean, an earmark is nothing more than just writing a check to somebody out of the state of Connecticut checking account, whereas bonding is money that is borrowed. But the difference really is not about how it gets paid. It's about the process. If you wanted to get bonding money for something in your district, for example, you or I wanted to, we'd have to go and present that in a proper way that has a procedure. There will be a hearing date scheduled by the Finance Committee. After all that, and then it has to be approved by the Bonding Committee later. But I mean, there's a process, an open process that people understand what's happening. Yep. This is totally secret. And then I'm like asking the chairman of the Appropriations Committee on the floor of the Senate, can you tell me about this organization? Why are they receiving it? And she's got no answer. Yeah. I mean, how am I supposed to vote for that?
But we do bonding requests. They comes with paperwork and plans. You got to have a plan. Right. You even have to have a construction schedule or whatever you're using the money for has to be sort of detailed. And then, so when it comes to these, the one thing that concerns me the most is what some of these nonprofit groups are up to. It's one thing if they're sort of helping at risk youth, but some of these are just purely political, or their payrolls are so high, they're sort of not helping anybody. I didn't know if you had a list of some of the more suspicious ones or the ones that raise the most red flags
Well, there was a couple of organizations. There was the Sports Academy. That's one that got $225,000. So basically $250,000, right? And we can't find this organization. They don't have a Facebook page. They don't have a website. They're not filed with the Secretary of State. I mean, it's like we're giving out $250,000 here.
Do we even know what town they're in?
No. You know, all of that happens after the fact. You know, the Democrats will lean on the fact that there is a little bit of process after it's passed, because the Judicial Department has to develop a contract and then has to contact this organization, and they got to file a tax ID number and all that. But that's not oversight. That's
No.
not. I mean, again, you could just do it before the company, the organization even exists.
So
You call them up after. Hey, by the way, I got your $250,000. Go set up a company called the Sports Academy so you can get your check. What is this?
I have to tell you, that's the first time I'm hearing that one. I thought it at least had to be some organization that existed. So the Judicial Department isn't vetting these people. They're sort of saying, hey, you need to fill out your proper 501c3 forms so that we can get you the money that's already been approved. Do they have any ability to not give them money? To say, hey, this is really unseemly, we're going to stop the funds? The Judicial Department.
There is no statutory requirement at all. They can, so they don't have to do anything, frankly. The check can just fly. So thankfully they are doing something. But, one of the requirements is that they ask that organization that's receiving the money what they're going to use the money for, and they have to fill out like a small contract. But presumably you could put anything on there.
Really? And are these people who receive this money, are they under obligation not to use it for political purposes?
No.
So
no, and there's no audits. I mean, maybe there's some audits if you get a real lot of money, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But a lot of these are getting, 60,000, 200,000, things like that. And I don't think there's any audit process in place at all. So this money is just being added into a bill by the leadership to benefit whomever, and then later they chase it down.
So I know that the Republicans, led by the Senate, are proposing some solutions. What does the solution look like to a problem like this?
Yeah, it's basically making the process mirror what we do for bonding. Frankly, I mean, it's like having a request be attached to an individual lawmaker, so you know who actually asked for this money, first off, so you can track it back to, see, Representative Rutigliano, so why did you ask for this money for this? So at least there's some accountability. A public hearing might be nice. A third parties, like, you have an organization, whatever name, but then that money's actually using it to pay someone else.
Right.
We're going to require that other someone else also contracts with the state. Look, this is because we live in Connecticut, the Democrats have been in charge for decades now. We have a swamp. We do. We got the deep state. We got all of that same stuff that they talk about in Washington. And today was, House and Senate Republicans getting together to say, look, we got to push back on some of this stuff. Yeah. It's absurd the way taxpayer money is being abused. People are suffering out there. People are having a tough time, determining how to spend their money. And to be used for this kind of thing is just ridiculous.
That's an excellent point, right? This is a serious issue, and they've really politicized it, especially this year. I mean, the fear-mongering about this cut that never materialized, or that cut, or somebody said they might cut something someday, so let's, earmark all this money because we need to protect those people from the cut that never came, but they didn't give the money back after there was no cut. But affordability is an absolute issue. Believe me, it's amazing that we've had surplus after surplus in the state of Connecticut. Now, it's a laudable goal to pay off some debt, roll it over, share up our pensions, absolutely. But at some point, when a legislator gets up in the House and says, look at how lucky we are. Look, we have all this extra money. We could do this. I'm like, whoa. They never consider giving it back to the taxpayer. It makes no sense. Give it back to me. Everything this administration's done and this majority's done since my time here has made my life and everybody else's life more expensive.
That's the difference between us and them, though, isn't it, though? I mean, that's the difference between the political parties. I mean, Republicans believe people should keep more of their own money so that they can spend it. I trust you or anyone watching this clip to spend their money more wisely than the state of Connecticut. A lot of it's going to go to waste. It's going to be used for purposes that are not constructive or that you, frankly, don't even agree with. I mean, back in that early special session, they gave all this money to organizations having to do with helping illegal immigration or trans rights. And I'm like, frankly, I mean, those people, I got nothing against against them, but you know what? Not on my dime.
Use your own money.
Why am I
Yeah,
use your
right.
own money for
Yeah,
that?
right.
Raise your own money for those sort of things. You know what's funny that you mentioned, how the Democrats are making a big deal about the shutdown and, potential cuts
Right.
by the Trump administration. They're talking about parks being closed.
Yeah.
You know why they're talking about parks being closed? Because that's all they got.
Yeah.
If there's no actual cuts to anyone, it's not like senior citizens are dying because they're being the park's going to be closed.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that they're just exaggerating.
Of course.
They don't have anything to really hang their hat on, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to call them out on it.
Yeah, listen, I turned the news on this morning. I tried to watch a little bit in the morning, and they were talking about the shutdown. I had to be reminded that the government was shut down because it affected my life so little that I wasn't even. It's not top of mind.
This shutdown thing happens like every year,
Yeah.
and it's like I asked people at a public forum just recently. I'm like, do you remember when the last shutdown was? And they were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's right, because that's how much it impacted you.
Yeah.
Like not at all.
It's funny how they could shut down paying people, but they can't shut down taking our money, right? Apparently, the IRS is immune to all the shutdowns. The money
Apparently,
keeps
yes.
flowing in. The affordability thing, I think you and I could probably talk about for a long time. And some of this stuff you're a little bit more into than, or have more knowledge than I do. Affordability, for sure, is an equal issue. But the FBI has been snooping around. And the FBI has been looking at, they like to say it's individual lawmakers. I'm going to bring up something that maybe you and I didn't talk about before that. So we should look at where all these earmarks are going and whose brothers, sisters, friends, cousins, whatever is running these phony nonprofits. Nobody's talking about the Social Equity Council.
Right.
So we created this slush fund of drug money, right? It's tax on
They created
the recreation. I did not vote for it, right? On recreational marijuana, it goes into this slush fund. Absolutely no oversight about who, what, or where gets this money. And then Waterbury, in theory, one of your towns was supposed to get some of this money. I hear, I don't disparage the new director. He's new, McGee. We served with him. He's a good guy. He probably tried to get a handle on things. But before he got there, we heard nothing but problems with the Social Equity Council. And it's basically the same thing. Money goes to whomever with no oversight.
Right. Yeah. Again, I mean, this is the, I don't know. It's even more than overconfidence, but it's the majority just thinking they can get away with anything that they want. Really, they just we'll just write it into a law, no problem. No one's going to ask, and if they do, no one will care. Yeah. That's their attitude, and the whole Social Equity Council. I mean, what a disaster. I mean, they tried to paint this as a civil rights issue that we're going to legalize marijuana for certain individuals. No, it wasn't about legalizing marijuana. It was about creating a government, structure to manipulate all these license fees and give handouts to different groups and everything else. That is what the Democratic Party has become. It has been a machine that recycles money, redistributes wealth for their own political future and success. That's what they do. That is how they make every decision. You and I come to work every day at the state capitol trying to come up with good policy to help the people of the state of Connecticut, to create more opportunity, and they come here every day trying to figure out how they're going to keep their positions and they're going to stay in power. And they write every law based on that, not on good ideas.
I have come to understand that it really is about power. It's about power and control, and it's about certain constituencies, protected classes of people who they think are more favorable than others. And that is really true. If you're a state employee, or if you're supposedly a victim of some imaginary policy from 40 years ago, that you are more deserving. But yet they need to be the controller of the help. They can't just let you go by your own devices. We need to steer you in the right directions. And then, part of that bill and part of what we did this year was the $300 million for a new early child care fund, right? Now, who's opposed to early child care? But wait till it's free. You think it's expensive now. And my friends tell me all the time how expensive it is. Wait till it's free. What do you think is going to happen when it is now free to everybody, chasing the same amount of daycare centers? You are not going to be able to open them up fast enough. Those people are going to get unionized faster than you could imagine. And it's going to get more expensive than you could imagine. It seems like every solution they have just means more expense for us, right? The only time in the past 4 or 5 years a reporter has ever asked me how the cost of living was going and how my businesses are doing is when Trump announced a tariff. I said, tariff? So where have you been? Do you understand what inflation has done to the average person the past 4 years? Yep. You instituted a highway use tax. Name one thing that doesn't come to you on a truck Anywhere you buy it, anywhere you go, your house, you name it, it was on a truck, you taxed it. And you're thinking a tariff is making my life more expensive? It's nonsensical to me.
Third highest taxes in the country, third highest electric rates, obviously massive inflation that's just killing us all. I mean, and that's all from the Democrats. That's where it came from. And it's all because of the way they do policy. As you mentioned, they have their sacred cows. They got the state employees. They're going to always take care of state employees first. They want to make sure they lock in that voting block, and their families and so forth. And again, you and I don't want to do anything to hurt state employees. I want them to be treated fairly. I'm trying to make sure that they have a good job and good retirement and safe, everything else. But again, they do a very good job of painting us as we're the villains because we might not agree with the idea that you should be able to spike your overtime and make twice as much as your base salary in your retirement. These are the kind of things
Or
that
show up to work.
Yeah. Or show up to work if you work in some state agencies that are still working from home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what they do. They put people into boxes and they pit them against each other.
Right.
It's businesses versus employees. It's landlords versus tenants. And they're always playing the numbers game. Well, there's always going to be more tenants than landlords. So all we have to do is start screwing at the landlord at the benefit of the tenant, and we'll have more votes.
Right.
And we'll leave those Republicans to defend the landlords. When you and I, we're not trying to defend anyone. We're not picking sides.
No.
We want fairness. They do the same thing. We're going to do a women's health bill. I'm like, well, why aren't we doing just a health bill? Why are we doing a women's health bill?
Right.
And it's because they want to be able to say, oh, Senator Sampson voted against women's health. And it's like, no, I didn't. I voted against your bill, which had very little to do with helping anyone.
Yeah.
But they're good at it, and that's what it is. And the only way that we beat them is with the truth. And thank you for this opportunity to be on the show.
I really appreciate you coming here and doing it. I think that given more time, we could probably go off into a lot of different directions. We should probably do this again. We're focused on the earmarks and the sort of the shady way that they dole out money. But it has turned into more really how this thing operates here. It is shocking, and I know it's shocking for you too, because we spent time in the Labor Committee together, how two guys who sort of come from humble beginnings have their own business, hustle, make their own money, and to see how this operates compared to the real world, it shocks me sometimes. I mean, I try to do my best. I try to make it, listen, it was always about trying to keep the kids here, making it so they could have a life in Fort, Connecticut, because it's beautiful here, but man, do they make it hard.
I'm so happy about what's happening nationally that, our country's back, and we actually have people in government that are trying to preserve this great nation, for the future. Because, I mean, that's the reason why I'm in politics, is because I ran because I was scared. I'm like, there's no place else to go. I mean, we lose, our freedom and our rights in America. There's no other place to go. Connecticut, sadly, has become kind of like the sanctuary, not just for illegal aliens, but for crazy progressive policy. But there's hope. I really feel like we got a chance to turn that around, too. People are fed up, and they're paying more attention than ever, and it's about time.
I agree with you. It's been a tough month, because the Charlie Kirk assassination really hit home. He is not of my generation, but he is of my son's. So I know the impact he had on these young boys who have been treated terribly for years. They've been marginalized, said they were toxic, that you name it, and that their opportunity has been taken away from. And I didn't want to go off on a different direction, but it's been hard to be as hopeful as I had been since then, and I'm working on it, and I'm trying, and I appreciate you saying it, and I appreciate you coming, and you're welcome back anytime to talk about just about anything.
I really appreciate that opportunity, Dave. Thanks so much for having me.
See you next time.